Hello, you beautiful people. So today I want to start what's looking to be a new series on the channel. I don't know, the title's still a work in progress, but it's going to be called Keep, Trade, or Drop right now. So far I've gone through my Discord and the comments and looked for players that I think have been mentioned the most frequently the past 2 weeks, and I'm going to talk about them, whether I think you should keep them, whether you should look to trade them, or whether you should look to drop them to your waiver wire. So yeah, with that being said, let's just get right into it. So the first player I want to talk about is Al Horford. And here's the thing, when I tell you to keep a player, I'm not necessarily meaning like don't trade him under any circumstance. I'm more saying you don't desperately need to trade him. Like if you keep him on your team, I don't think their value is going to decrease that much that you're going to regret keeping them. I more think that it's just going to be a sort of steady production. So I'm not saying don't trade them under any circumstance. It's more you don't necessarily have to. But first player is Al Horford, and he's just been playing unreal. I consider him a must roster player in like every league, 8-team, like 6-team, all the way. Doesn't matter. He's only rostered in 70% of leagues right now, which I don't really understand because he's just been absolutely insane. And yeah, I was worried that him and Robert Williams, they were sort of going to split minutes at center position, but it looks like Ime Udoka, or however you say his last name, definitely butchered that. It looks like they've been splitting the minutes with Al Horford at power forward and Robert Williams at center. And so far, it's really turned into some good fantasy numbers for Horford, and I don't really see them decreasing beyond like a 40 points per game. Like even games that he's not scoring efficiently, he's just filling up the box sheet in so many statistical categories as Al Horford does. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of what he's doing for fantasy perspective. I do think like you're not going to get crazy scoring numbers out of him, but the rebounding has just been very nice this season for him. He's averaging 10 rebounds a game so far. And that's why I'm okay if you want to keep Al Horford. People are asking if you should trade him. You can trade him if you get a good offer, but it's not a necessity that you do. I'm perfectly content with holding him if I have him on my team. I think he's going to average around 40 points per game for fantasy this season. And yeah, it's just a really solid player. If you picked him up off waiver wire, as most people did, or drafted him very late, you're definitely looking, your season's looking bright, man, because these are the kind of moves or players that can really win you your fantasy season if you got them late. So yeah, I'm going to deem Al Horford keep for now, and like I said, just really want to reiterate that just means that you don't necessarily have to trade him. Don't panic trade him because you're afraid he's going to fall off. I think he's going to maintain some production. His average points per game might dip down for fantasy. He's up to 46.2 right now, and I think that will probably go down to around 40, but other than that, I don't really see any reason why it would. It's not like the Celtics are missing anyone. Everyone's playing right now, and he's still putting up around 46 fantasy points per game, so Al Horford, first player on their list, and I'm going to go ahead and say keep on him. Next up, one of my favorite fantasy players. I put him in my sleepers video for players that could win your league, and so far he's delivering on that. It's going to be Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas' rebounding numbers, man, the centers are so OP for fantasy if you have a great rebounding player that can score the ball. He's averaging 43.7 fantasy points per game. He's the number 2 ranked center, and I don't know if he's going to stay as the number 2 ranked center, but I seriously don't expect his fantasy numbers to drop below 43. Like, he's just that solid of a performer. I don't know why people were sleeping on him. He's playing more minutes per game this year, which is great because, like, as a per-minute contributor, he's just ridiculous for fantasy perspective. And yeah, I'm a really big fan of him for fantasy, man. I said it at the start of the season. I'm sticking by it. If I have Jonas on my team, I'm keeping him for now. I'm not really looking to trade him because I don't think his value is going to fall off. Obviously, if you get, like, an insane offer, you got to take it, but like I said with my keeps, I'm just saying if you have Jonas, don't panic and be like, oh man, this is like the best that Jonas is going to get if I have to trade him because his value is going to be down throughout the season. No, man, Jonas is a really solid fantasy performer. I know the only concern is that maybe when Zion gets back, his rebounding numbers will go down, but honestly, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think Zion is going to affect like his rebounding numbers to like an extreme amount because Jonas is just such a dominating presence on the interior. And also, he gives a little more spacing for Zion, so if anything, takes a little bit of attention off of Jonas, and he's going to get a few more easy looks. So his shot attempts might go down. Obviously, that's just what happens when you play with a really solid player like Zion. So maybe when Zion gets closer to returning, then maybe I'll change my mind on Jonas and look to trade him. But for right now, for the next, Zion's out for like, they said maybe 2 to 3 more weeks, so he's missing like at least 8 to 10 games, and that's not even like a concrete timetable, so it might be even longer. So for that time period, I'm just going to hold on to Jonas if I have him. Maybe when the time that Zion's getting closer to returning is sort of looming, then maybe I'll look to trade him. But even then, I'm very confident with keeping Valanciunas on my team, and I don't think there's any need to trade him necessarily unless you really want to or you get a solid offer. Then we have this year's seemingly Julius Randle. If you remember last year, Julius Randle was ranked in like the 80s at the start of the year, and he finished up top 10. Miles Bridges has been on fire. I don't know what the hell got into him. Nobody was expecting this. I don't care who says it. Nobody was expecting Miles Bridges to be this good for fantasy this early on in the season. I didn't have him ranked even close to my top 50. He's definitely in there now, by far. I think every fantasy YouTuber would probably agree with me there. And he's an interesting one because I'm for the opinion of like selling high on him, because I was worried that maybe Terry Rozier would be like the straw that broke the camel's back and his production would go back. But in his games with Terry so far, he even shot very poorly from the field one game, 4 for 18, and he still put up 43 fantasy points because he contributed 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. So Miles Bridges has just been looking ridiculous. He's ranked as the number 1 small forward right now. Really don't think that's just a little unreasonable. I don't think he's going to finish as the best small forward in fantasy, but if I have him on my team, I'm probably looking for offers. I'm more on the side of trading Miles Bridges, more just because it's hard to trust the production of a guy who's just sort of picked it up for the first season. Like, I know players can take big breakouts, but it's better to have, like, if you can trade him for, like, a top 15 player that's, like, proven himself in seasons before, I'd just be a little more confident in that. But that being said, I am okay if you want to hold on to Miles Bridges, because if he's going to contribute like this, I don't really think you need to trade him necessarily. I just listen to offers and shop him around. But at the end of the day, Miles Bridges, you can keep him if you want to. I'm on the opinion that maybe I'll look to trade him, but definitely not a rush. He's not someone that I'm like, oh man, I should trade him as fast as possible because his value is going down. Same with Jonas and same with Al Horford as well. So yeah, so far these 3 guys I'm all looking at like, hey, I'm okay if you want to keep them on your team. Miles Bridges would be the one I'd be listening to the most offers on, because if there's any one out of the 3 whose values I think might go down, it could be Miles Bridges, just because this is like a pretty astronomical leap from the numbers he was putting up last year. But yeah, maybe he'll maintain it. Who knows? I mean, I didn't think Julius Randle was going to be that good last season as well, and look how that turned out. So maybe maybe Miles Bridges will do that this season. But yeah, I'm just more of the opinion that if you wanted to, I would be open to trading him. But then again, at the same time, if you want to keep him, I can't fault you there. So that'll just go ahead and move us on to the next player. And now these 2 players are players that have sort of been playing or underperforming to start the season, and that's more of a reason. So if you drafted either of these players, right now you're probably thinking like you kind of shot yourself in the foot, because you can't really trade them because of the upside that they do have. You're not going to get good value in return. And at the same time, you can't drop them because they're like, these are potential like top 40 players. You can't really get rid of them. So we'll start off with Michael Porter Jr. I don't really know what's got into him on the Nuggets, man. I don't know what their sort of plan was with Michael Porter Jr. He was averaging like 20 points per game last year. This season he's averaging 10 points per game. His numbers are down like all across the board. They're really not utilizing him well. The Nuggets haven't really been that good. And last night he put up 10, 8, and 3. That's really just way below average for Michael Porter Jr. And that's just been the whole theme so far this season. So if you have Michael Porter Jr. on your team, you pretty much have to hold him. I'm sorry. I know it's annoying and I'm going to keep saying it, but the upside that he has is so great that you can't afford to trade him for like piss poor value. You're just going to have to accept that like you might get some losses early on in the season by him, but you really just can't afford to trade him. The upside's too high. I do think he's going to bounce back. I really do think his numbers are going to start to increase soon. It's just a bit of a slow start out of the gate. I mean, the Denver offense is looking a bit strange for him, but yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is someone, if you have him on your team, I know it's frustrating, but you really can't trade him. I don't think it's worth you're not going to get equal value in return. And his upside's so high that you can't really consider dropping him at all. That's just like not even a feasible option. So yeah, Michael Porter Jr., I think you should keep him. I know some people don't want to hear it. They're like trying to ship him out as fast as possible, but unless someone's giving you like a solidified top 40 guy for him, which I doubt you'd get right now from anyone because everyone's going to try to lowball you for him, I really think you got to keep Michael Porter Jr. on your team. And then lastly, De'Aaron Fox, who's someone that I was very high on going into the season, maybe even too high as it's showing out so far. But I don't know what's going on with him on the Kings, but he's just really taking such dumb shots. Like every single time he drives, he's taking like a... Sorry if you can hear that. There's some car coming in the background. They got some squeaky ass brakes. But yeah, every single time he's driving to the rim, he keeps stopping and doing like some stupid fadeaway mid-range shot. I don't know why the hell he's doing it. He's shooting so many of them too. I'm not even kidding. Every single time he drives, it's like he's afraid to go to the rim, which is like the majority of his offense should come from there. But he just insists on taking like these tough Kobe-style shots where it's like he can hit them sometimes, but not efficiently enough for like the rate he's taking them at. So that's very frustrating. I'm assuming that his shot selection is going to turn down because he was averaging 45 fantasy points per game last year, and he's all the way down to 27 right now. So yeah, De'Aaron Fox, you pretty much have to keep him too. All 5 guys on the list this week are guys that I would pretty much hold on to. Except for Miles Bridges, I'd be more open to trading him. But yeah, De'Aaron Fox, you really got to hold on to him. He's shooting 16% from 3. He's only scored 20 points twice or more so far this season, and he was averaging 25 points per game last year. So De'Aaron Fox, I'm very confident that his season is going to turn around once he sorts out the stupid shot selection and sort of gets more comfortable working his way back into things. Probably didn't anticipate Harrison Barnes being such a prominent feature in the offense this year either, but that's just how things have been going. So definitely some adjustments that Fox needs to make, but I'm confident that he can make them, and that's why I think you have to hold him if he's on your team, because anyone that offers you a trade offer for you right now is you're not going to get equal value. Someone tried offering me Christian Wood for De'Aaron Fox, and that's just not an offer I'm looking to field, man. I'd much rather have Fox on my team, and that's why I think you got to keep him. So that's going to wrap up the keep section. So far, I hope this helps you guys. Now we're going to go ahead and get into guys that are sort of like lesser options, sort of closer to waiver wire guys, and talk about whether you should keep them or whether you should drop them. All right, so now we're moving on to guys that are closer to waiver wire, like I said. So let's talk about, get it right off the bat, we got the Rockets Rockets backcourt. We're going to talk about both of them, starting with Kevin Porter Jr. He was someone whose value sort of skyrocketed when the season was about to start because he was cooking in the G League or whatever, and in preseason he was doing all right. Right now his rostered percentage has already decreased by 10%. And if I have Kevin Porter Jr. on my team right now, I'm definitely very hesitant about dropping him, but I'm also not too keen on keeping him. Because that was the thing with him going into the season. He's so inconsistent. And I don't know if you guys have been watching the Rockets play, but he's just so careless with the ball. Like, it genuinely pisses me off how, like, lackadaisical he's making some of his passes. And that's what's killing his fantasy season. It's the efficiency, but mostly the turnovers, man. Like, he's averaging as many turnovers as he is assists. Like, he's had a 9 turnover game. He's averaging, like, 6 turnovers per game almost. Like, it's just insane. And watching him play, it's just so lazy, so careless. It's really annoying. So, yeah, he's just very inconsistent. If you have him on your team, you know when he played OKC, he had that really good fantasy game, put up 55 fantasy points. And, like, he's capable of doing that on nights, and that's the thing. You just sort of have to deal with the inconsistency. So if I have him on an 8-team league, then maybe I would consider dropping him. But anything past that, I really don't think you can. He's extremely volatile and very inconsistent. But it's just like you can't really, like, pass up on the upside that if he could have one of those 55-point games for a guy that's, like, if you drop him and someone gets him off waivers and they get that game, then that really could, like, hurt your fantasy team. You're giving up a lot of value there. So for right now, I'm probably going to keep him in, like, 10-team leagues and up. But if this trend continues where it's just so inconsistent that it just isn't even tenable anymore, then by all means I'll make another one of these and say go ahead and drop him. But at this point in the season, I'm probably going to go ahead and keep him. So we'll go ahead and move on to his backcourt mate, and it's going to be Jaylen Green. Jaylen Green is rostered in way more leagues than Kevin Porter Jr., and I'm not really too sure why. I think it's the whole effect that he's a rookie, so people are, like, more excited about having a rookie on their team, but he's been, like, really bad for fantasy. I know he's a rookie, and every rookie needs to adjust, but he's had, like, one good game against the Celtics, and every other game he's just been shooting like dog shit. And the reason I wasn't too high on him is because I didn't think he was going to contribute that much in other categories outside of, like, scoring and three-pointers, and so far that's sort of held true. He's averaged 3 assists and 4 rebounds. So not a lot of value in him right now. I don't really consider him that great of a fantasy option. I suppose if you want to hold him because you're like, maybe you'll have that rookie breakout where he starts cooking and averaging like 20 points per game. Just right now, I'm not seeing it with the efficiency he's shown. He's really like struggling to adjust to the NBA pace and like scoring wise, I mean. So yeah, for right now, the Rockets backcourt in 8-team leagues, questionably rostering them unless there's someone better on waivers, and I'll have a waiver wire video coming out tomorrow, so I'll sort of go into further detail for like guys that I would drop, like Kevin Porter Jr. or Jaylen Green for. But right now, I guess hold on to Jaylen Green if you want to. If you're in a 10-team league, unfortunately, like, I know he's a rookie and he's inconsistent, like I've been saying, but I guess it's like in 10-team leagues and up, you really just sort of have to take a chance because there's not that many good options on your waiver wire anyway, so you might as well hope and pray that Jaylen Green sort of turns it around and learns how to put the ball in the net efficiently. So yeah, that's going to do it for the Rockets. And then another guy that I've been very disappointed in so far. I was very high on him coming into the season. This just shows why you can't trust preseason too much, but it's going to be Jordan Poole. And he's just been all over the place consistency-wise. Sometimes he has good games for shooting-wise, and sometimes he doesn't. And then he's just like completely chucking and not hitting anything. So yeah, it's just the inconsistencies all over the place. I really wouldn't roster him in 8-team leagues at all. I think he belongs on the waiver wire in those sort of leagues. 10-team, more interesting. He's like a questionable waiver wire guy. And then anything past that, I do think you do have to keep him. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I was expecting a lot more consistency considering I was viewing him as like the number 2 scoring option on the Warriors, but he hasn't really been living up to it. He's only averaging 14 points per game and not really giving anything in terms of peripheral stats. So 8 to 10-team leagues, I would go ahead and drop Jordan Poole. Probably 12-team and up, I would think that you do have to keep him for now. And yeah, and then the thing is, like, even when Klay Thompson comes back, even though it's not going to be for a while, like, could his value get any lower? You know what I mean? So I guess you hold on to him for a little while longer until Klay's return date gets closer. And then even if you're in a 12-team, you might become obsolete when Klay is playing, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Very frustrating, but yeah, you just really can't keep his consistency together. And yeah, so next up is one of my least favorite fantasy players of all time. I don't know why every year people are so high on him, and I don't understand why. They're like, oh, he just had a down year. Like, bro, he's just not like good at anything for fantasy. He's mediocre in every single category. If you're in a categories league, then like maybe I guess, but like what's he even a specialist in? You know what I mean? Like maybe it should be steals, but he's averaging less than 1 a game. He's not going to score, and like 3-pointers are like the easiest category to get. Like there's so many players that can shoot 3-pointers that you really don't need Robert Covington for them. And right now he's rostered in 55% of leagues, which is just stupid. So he's averaging on the season, he's averaging 4 points per game, less than 1 steal and block, 0.3 assists, and 5 rebounds and 1 3. Like, why are we rostering Covington in any form of points league? He's had games where he scored 0 points in 2 of his last 5. Like, there's no reason to have him. If you're in a points league, there's genuinely no reason to have Covington on a roster unless you're in like a 16-team plus league. He's not even close to the number 1 scoring option on his team. He's probably like 5th or 6th. It's pretty much his only scoring option is if like someone's doubled and he's open in the corner or he's open from 3. And he's not even like the greatest shooter in the world. So you're not going to get a lot of value over there. He might hit 3-pointers in a game. Probably not going to be anything more than that. So yeah, if I have Robert Covington on my team, I'm very comfortable dropping him and taking a guy that sort of like a flyer on a guy that has the potential to have a big game. While he like might have a bad game, he has the potential for a big game. Whereas like Robert Covington is supposed to be like a medium baseline player. Like you know what you're going to get out of him for like a shit game. But at this point, his shit games are so mediocre that it's not even like a good baseline to have because he's pretty much just doing nothing for fantasy. So I don't know why Robert Covington's rostered in so many leagues. Category leagues, hey, you do you, but I mainly focus on points leagues here, and I just don't consider him a rosterable player in that format. And then moving on, next up, someone that's been a good surprise to start the season. This is more for the deeper leagues, is Desmond Bane. And he's been rostered in 40% of leagues, and I think the only reason people were questioning dropping him is because the return of Dillon Brooks is looming. And that's it. Like, here's the thing. You don't know exactly when Dillon Brooks is going to be back. He's going to be reevaluated next week. And even then, that's not like a concrete timetable for when he's going to return. And even when he does return, you might as well hold Desmond Bane for now. I mean, odds are that you picked him up off waivers or you got him at a late pick. There's probably not anything better for like right now, like this current week. So I'm not really looking long term on Desmond Bane. Maybe Brooks will take away a lot of his value, but I don't think you can drop him just based on that like potentiality. Like you should focus on what's actually happening right now. And for this week and looking forwards for like a bit in the future, I would hold on to Desmond Bane. I don't think you should drop him just because of what might happen when he gets back, when Brooks gets back. All right, and then the last player I want to talk about. Oh, I forgot to advertise the Discord as always. Discord, link in the description if you want fantasy trade help, waiver wire help, have any questions about your team, or just want a good place to talk about fantasy basketball. Highly recommend joining the Discord. It's a great place, great community in there, and they're always willing to help you out. Love you guys. But yeah, the last player on the list is going to be Eric Bledsoe, the most inconsistent player of all goddamn time. Started off very well this season for the Clippers, had a great game against Golden State and Memphis, and then he just went back to being absolute dog shit like Eric Bledsoe does. So 8-team leagues, I'm dropping him. I don't know why like he just has gone so shit ever since he went to New Orleans. Just really fell off completely. And it doesn't look like he's recovered. So I'm comfortable dropping him in an 8-team, 10-team, maybe. I mean, like theoretically, he should have the opportunity to put up some big fantasy numbers because it's not like the Clippers have a lot of options that can score the ball. But here we are. He's been playing like shit. I really don't like him for fantasy just because like he's just so inconsistent. Doesn't really do much at all. The Clippers like have not been great as a whole for fantasy outside of Paul George. He's pretty much the only one putting up any okay fantasy numbers. So yeah, I'm comfortable dropping Eric Bledsoe. I think there's probably plenty of better options on your waiver wires. And like I said, I'll have a waiver wire video coming up tomorrow where I'll show you guys some people that I'd probably roster instead of these guys. But until then, I hope this helps you guys out in making your decisions. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed. And as always, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.